congratulations on the doco. It's absolutely amazing. I sat there and was so wrapped up in watching it, so congratulations.
Thank you. That means a lot, because I've read some of your comments about films and documentaries, and I've heard your points about how documentaries get it right and sometimes not so right, and I can concur with those points. And as a filmmaker, I've tried to strike the balance between, entertainment and having the story compelling, as well as informing and sharing with audiences a world that they wouldn't normally get access to.
Definitely. So where did the idea for this documentary first begin for you?
Well, so 12 years ago, it kind of just happened to me, really. An old colleague of mine from my TV days crossed paths with me on the street and said, "Hey, I know someone who's looking for you, Bernard." And she was referring to a video editor. And that was Jill, who's in the film. So Jill was putting together a team of freelance filmmakers to help some kids at a special needs high school make a short film. It was just a short film back then. And I immediately got a good feeling about it. I normally scrutinize these things to make sure I can do it and do it well and so forth. But I immediately had a good feeling, and before I knew it, I could hear the words out of my mouth saying, "Yes, put my name forward." So it sort of began from there. Jill isn't a filmmaker; she's more of an entrepreneur, but she loves cinema. And this project was a great project. The spirit was terrific. So I took on the responsibility of post-production, not just editing. And Jill and I talked about where the short films were going to be shown, where they could be shown, how they might travel, and so forth. So I was trying to work out how we're going to finish the film for basically no money. This was a community project after all. As I'm putting together this plan, what favours we're going to pull, this good feeling continued to grow. And it grew to the point where I was thinking, this is such a great idea, this project, that wouldn't it be great to have a making of documentary about how the films got made? So you don't just have a couple of short films at the end of this process, but you've actually got the story of how they got made. Now, we had a production meeting, myself and Jill and the other freelancers, working out how we're going to do all this with everyone volunteering their time and resources. I pitched this idea of, wouldn't it be great if we had a behind the scenes, just a short documentary to show the kids going through the filmmaking process? Everyone loved the idea, but everyone was full up with their own responsibilities. So the idea just died, went nowhere from there. Anyway, by the end of this production meeting, we were all excited. Everyone could see how this was going to happen. There was a magic to it. And so before we actually sort of, left that meeting room, I desperately put up my hand and said, "You know what, kids? I'll shoot the documentary." So I threw my hat in the ring. I didn't know how it was going to happen. I just thought, let's just go with this. So I had just bought myself a high-definition video camera back then. And this was back in the days when high-def video was just new to... They weren't as ubiquitous as they are now. So I actually had an affordable HD camera, which I thought was going to be broadcastable. And that was my main objective. If we're going to shoot something, it'd be great to share this with the world and get it on TV. And so I put together my kit. Everyone was ready for it. They were prepared. And you know what? This idea of having a behind-the-scenes making of elevated the mood of this project for everyone, because all of a sudden everyone realized that they were going to be in the story. They weren't supporting the kids making the short films. They were going to be part of the story. And so that's how it happened. My first day of rolling was going to the school, St. Edmunds, meeting the teaching staff, and it's in the documentary. You see Jill explaining this project to the teaching staff, and that's where it all began.
So how did you find actually working with the children? Because I found, it would have been about 10, 15 years ago now, I got to work on a video project with a group of people at Urella, which is now called Scope here in Melbourne, and it was one of the most rewarding times that I've ever had in my career. How did you find that experience working with the kids at the school?
Yeah, well, I didn't know what to expect from these kids. Because I had no experience of people with intellectual disability, so I had no expectations. When I went into the school, met the kids, this school had an amazing feeling to it. There was a lot of love in the school. There really was. I wish I'd gone to a high school like this, actually, back in my day. The kids were terrific. They were, I don't know how to say it with being sort of correct in the terms I used appropriate. I was new to intellectual disability in this universe, and it really is a separate universe. What I'd say now, because going through this project, it has changed me.
Yep.
I've learned a lot through this first-hand experience, and like you, I concur with your comments. It's been an amazing experience. I'm so grateful to have this project to make.
One of the things I found is that kids with intellectual disability, and I was working with teenagers as well, they have such an amazing imagination, but quite often people either don't listen to their ideas or they don't have that opportunity to put their ideas into motion, whether it be a short story or a short film or a theatre production. How did you find the kids were with you once they realised that their imagination was going to be able to be put on screen?
They loved it, and about kids, they have great personality. This little snippet's not in the film, but I set up my camera. After the short films were shot, I went back to the school, set up the camera in the playground at lunchtime to hang out with the kids. And they would just come up to me and interact with the camera, and they would play around just like every other teenager would. It's like they would pretend to be TV presenters. They would tell stories. I had one boy, with his friends around, and he was just telling me stories like, I'm not actually a kid at school here. I'm actually a security guard. I just walk around and check on people. And it was hilarious the way he said it. So that's the personality. When it comes to their art is just like every other teenager.
Yep.
And I've shared some snippets of illustrations by one of the kids in the film, so people get to see it for themselves too. They're just like regular teenagers, and they have their own personalities, they have their own idiosyncrasies, but they're just teenagers, man. That's all they are.
Definitely. You said that you learned a lot while you were putting together this doco. What did you learn when you were putting together the film?
I learned not to be too hasty to jump to conclusions about how people are and why they are the way they are. Don't judge a book by its covers. And it's not just me saying this. In the parent interviews, they told me the same thing.
Yep.
It's easy for us to judge each other, but we don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. We don't know what's going on in people's lives. And whether you're neurotypical or neuroatypical, we've all got stuff going on that no one would ever have any idea about. Test audiences who have watched this film have told me the same thing. Early childhood educators have said, gee, it's a good reminder to us and our members that we don't always know what parents are going through. We don't always know what the kids are going through. So I guess I sum it up in this perspective. Be kind, be compassionate, be patient. I've had to learn to be patient with people. I try to practice this now. Don't always assume I know what's going on, because there's more than meets the eye.
Definitely. It sounds like this film has changed your life. Are you going to look now to do more projects with schools like St. Edmunds?
Excellent question. I don't know is the short answer. But what I hope happens from here once the film is released is that it inspires others, whether it be schools or policymakers, to approach disability in a more egalitarian way, really. For instance, I hope that there's a robust discussion, public debate about special education versus inclusive education, and then the context of mainstream education. That's another sort of area to explore, policymakers need to explore, because I've had conversations with disability advocates who have explained to me what inclusive education is, how it's different to special education, and what the pros and cons are of both, and how education going forward from here, from 2022 onwards, can be improved so that everyone is included and everyone meets their potential, reaches their potential.
Definitely. Now, for all of our listeners out there, Film Kids will be broadcast on SBS on August the 2nd at 9:50 a.m, but you'll also be able to grab it on SBS On Demand if you miss it on August the 2nd. Bernard, what would you like to say to our listeners out there before they sit down to watch this amazing film?
I get delighted when I hear feedback like this because, I look for documentaries. Before I answer the question, I'll just say I look for documentaries as a template to follow because there's a lot in this story. And I didn't find any documentaries that sort of were that could guide me in how I was going to structure the story. So I feel like I had to reinvent the wheel or invent the wheel in this film. What would I like people to get from it? There's a lot that I like people to get from it. I believe that there's going to be a lot that different people will get from it, whether they be parents who have a child with a disability, whether they're a parent who's raised a child or children with disabilities already and they've walked this path, they will get something from it. And for those who have an interest in disability and social justice and how to make the world a fairer place, they will get something out of this too. So there's something for everyone. And I've learned about this question a lot. And what I've concluded is people will take away from this many different things. Because I've had lots of different conversations with different people who have responded to this film positively. And I'm so delighted by that. I had no idea what to expect from people's reactions. So I'm starting to learn that people are responding and reacting in lots of different positive ways. And that to me is like the greatest compliment of all as the filmmaker of this film.
Definitely. Well, listeners, there you go. Go and check out this magnificent film. Like I said, it is screening on SBS on August the 2nd at 9:50 a.m. And if you miss it then, find Film Kids on SBS On Demand from that date. Bernard, thank you so much for taking the time to chat to us today. It's been an absolute honour having you on